Welcome back, everyone, to Morning Line. It's our final segment on this Wednesday, talking about gun rights, the Second Amendment. Your thoughts, our viewers sharing a lot of their thoughts and ideas on this, along with our professor joining us this morning from MTSU, Professor John Weil. It's always good to have you on, sir. It's nice to see you. I like your backdrop. It looks like a lovely day on campus.
It is, very much.
Hey, we've got a couple calls that waited through the break. Let's go next to Wilma. Wilma, good morning. Hi, Wilma.
Hey, good morning. I want to thank Maggie for calling in. I'm not thanking her for her service. I'm thanking her for her comment, because that is exactly what I was going to make a point of, half of my point. And if Maggie remembers, maybe in her day they didn't do this. We all stood in a firing order, and you weren't handed any bullets whatsoever until you were the guy behind the guy that was down in the hole, practicing for his qualification, because of the danger of that, because they know how destructive those weapons are, because they are exactly for that, to kill and kill as many as fast as possible. So, there was a saying they used to say, this is my weapon, this is for my gun, this is for killing, this is for fun, and you figure out what the other weapon is. And on that, I'll segue into Tom's point about the Emmett Till moment. We've already had that here in Nashville. I didn't watch all of the Waffle House shooter trial, because I've had enough of this, where some little boy takes his little gun out to make him feel like a man and do what he did at Waffle House. But during the day I did watch that trial, I saw some of the victims get up. And one of the young women that was shot one time in the leg, they pointed to her leg on camera. And I'm like, if y'all aren't looking at this right now and see how destructive this is, imagine what it does to children. Imagine what one bullet does to you. You don't have to be strafed with a whole clip. Imagine what one bullet does to you. They had to do the same thing at Sandy Hook, because those children were so obliterated that they had to do DNA tests. These AR-15s need to be off the street. I'm not taking away your 2-inch snub nose for personal defense. Nobody's doing that. And yeah, Ukraine is a good example. So let's escalate it. Oh, okay, AR-15s aren't good enough. The government's out to kill me and out to take my weapon. I want a bazooka now. When is it going to stop, folks?
I gotcha. She makes a good point. It's interesting. Professor, I don't know if you watched it. We covered that trial, of course, gavel to gavel. And the injuries sustained by some of these victims that took the stand were devastating, even now, all these years later, with numerous surgeries. And then they did show clips at certain points during the trial of some of the shootings that occurred that was caught on surveillance video. And it's absolutely horrible to watch. And she's correct. We've had some of our Emmett Till moment here, and it's hard to watch.
One thing we haven't discussed is apparently the protocol was not followed appropriately in this, in Uvalde. The thought of police officers who have taken an oath, to defend, standing by for 50 minutes or maybe even an hour while somebody is shooting, is just almost inconceivable to me. And that's something else that clearly, now my understanding is they did not follow the proper training that they were required to do. But, when you got an innocent child there, even if it means a law enforcement officer might have to put their own lives at risk, that's something that just has to be done.
Oh, sure. Well, you recall, and this will still be sorted out, but as you know, you remember in Parkland, there was a security guard who was vilified after the fact.
Yes.
Clearly because he did not go in when he could have, and it was much more clear-cut there. We're still trying to learn here what they knew and what they didn't, even though I don't see how there can be any rational explanation for not making the move and going in. But you're right. Look, you want to be law enforcement, okay? Hey, civilian, I understand if you don't want to put your life on the line and go in, okay? You're not trained for it. You're law enforcement. You get your butt in there or get out of the biz, period. End of story. Yeah. Right? That's what we're going to have to get some answers on that. Okay, but again, not all the answers in yet on what happened in Texas. But yeah, no room for cowards in that position. If you're a coward, don't do it, okay? Go do something else. Let's go next to Charles. Charles, good morning. Hi, Charles.
Yeah, the Second Amendment does not say the right to bear firearms. The Second Amendment says the right to bear arms. A bow and arrow is an arm. A sword is an arm. For centuries, wars were fought with swords and bows and arrows. You can hunt just as well with a bow and arrow. And as for Texas, Texas is a gun-happy state. You say in Texas, we don't call 911, we shoot. I'm sympathetic about that, but we do need stronger gun laws because there have been a lot of school shootings. It's just moms taking action to go to elected officials and say, we need stronger gun laws. I'm the same person who called about a year ago who said we should not have deadly force to protect property just because of those stores downtown that were vandalized, give the police or somebody else. As I said, if you want to protect your property, get a security guard, get balls on the windows, get a deadbolt. You can replace the money in property. You can't replace life. Furthermore, if you walk around wearing a gun or toting a gun, that's conspicuous and you draw attention to yourself. If you see walk or Texas Ranger, martial arts are an effective way to defend yourself. If you're walking around alone on a dark night, that can really help people. Lone martial arts, those skills cannot be taken away from you. A weapon can.
Right. Well, and you know what? I do remember his call from last year, a question about defense. Having a personal weapon for your personal protection and self-defense, I think everyone is in favor of in that situation. But he's right, too. The right to bear arms, that's very broad-based, right? I mean, again, there you go with interpretation. They were not specific on what type of arms.
I mean, we do know that laws, that states that seem to have stronger gun safety laws have less murders. Now, you know, correlation is not always causation, but before and if you look before and after this legislation being enacted, you usually do find a difference.
Yeah, there will always be exceptions cases. I know Illinois has significantly stricter gun laws than we do here in Tennessee, but we all know Chicago is like a shooting gallery on any weekend. But the other part of it is so many people use the phrase, Professor, you know, guns don't kill people, people kill people. And true, a person's pulling the trigger. But the proliferation of guns, what I find, I have trouble getting my hand around that argument, and that's all I see time and again on Facebook and posts from people, is that Europe has just as much mental illness as we have in this country and the like, okay? And they have a lot of people, but they have limitations on weapons. There's the difference there. And they don't even come close to the number of mass shootings that we have. So, I mean, yes, of course, a person pulls the trigger, but I think the availability of weapons plays a big role in how these shootings occur.
Well, you know, it's like what we were saying earlier about, you know, in an earlier age when kids disagreed with one another, they take it to fisticuffs, and then maybe it became switchblades, and now it's become guns. And, you know, even on popular portrayals of, you know, on television, seems like the first thing somebody does is pull out a gun. It's not a weapon any longer of last resort. It was interesting, you know, the president just hosted the Prime Minister of New Zealand, and they had a horrific shooting, several years ago. They've almost eliminated gun violence. Now, they've probably gone a lot farther than we would want to go or that we could go, given the number of guns that we have. But, you know, we do know that there are laws that can be at least partially effective.
Just as we wrap things up, are you of the belief that this time, finally, and it didn't really happen much after Sandy Hook, but after this, especially happening in a state like Texas, that it may bring some type of meaningful reform, or do you think let's just wait another couple weeks, it'll fade away and nothing will happen, especially keep in mind during an election year?
I don't know. I think the combination of Buffalo and Uvalde and, you know, a lot of other incidents in between have, you know, if it's going to be done, this seems like the time that something might be done. Is it going to eliminate gun violence in the United States? No. You know, I hate to say it, but, you know, there is no silver bullet to solve all the problems of guns in the United States. But if we can even, you know, clip around some of the edges the thought that children have, that parents have to worry when they drop off a kid in the morning, whether they're going to see him that evening, is just, what kind of society are we, what kind of kids are we going to end up with if they constantly see our own fear for their own safety?
Yeah, I think the question is, how do you approach it? I understand trying to make things more secure, but I am not in favor of making schools like prisons if that's what it takes, as opposed to addressing the issue and having people come into my place of business and train me in terms of how to protect myself if a mass shooter shows up here at Channel 5. I'm not interested in that. I want to know that, I suppose, but what I want is to stop him from getting a gun and coming here before it even happens.
My wife was a kindergarten teacher, and God bless her, but the thought of her packing heat, as a way of trying to protect her class is just pretty hard for me to comprehend.
Professor, thank you as always for joining us. We will talk again. You have a good day.
We'll do it.
Thank you much, sir. Take a break. Be back with a programming note right after this.